Hey guys, we're back. This is John.
Hey, it's Paul.
And this is What If Geeks. And today we are a little bit early, actually. It's going to be the same for you guys, but we're recording on a Saturday because we never know when Paul's going to suddenly disperse out of town. So he may or may not be here next Tuesday. We normally record on Tuesdays. So we figured why not just get together Saturday and see what happens. So that's what we're doing. So we're actually kind of running off the seat of our pants, I guess. So just kind of running off the cuff. We kind of come up with a couple of topics to talk about, and we'll just kind of fire them out there and see what happens.
Yeah, we just sort of figured this out earlier today that we were going to be able to make this work, and decided what we were going to talk about at Cracker Barrel.
Yes, because today was, let's see, when last we left you guys, Noah had surgery, and today was the first football game back after surgery. It was the first game of this 7-week season.
That's right. So the first week of our next flag football season. It's Coleman's 4th season.
Yeah, it's like Noah's 8th or something.
And so glad Noah was back today. He almost scored.
Yeah.
So welcome to Flag Football Talk with John and Paul.
Yeah.
But no, our kids had a great game today, and then our families we went and had breakfast together, and we got to hang out and talk about what we were going to do for the show. And now here we are.
Yeah, so we're and today is Saturday, March 30th that we're recording on. So we'll see. You should get this Tuesday, but so it's cool. I get to hang out with Paul now because, well, we might hang out again tomorrow. We're not sure, but we are. We got a little dinner thing that the neighborhood's doing tonight. So we're gonna a progressive dinner. We're gonna bounce from house to house, hang out with the neighbors. So that's kind of cool. But then tomorrow, my family is taking me out to lunch for my birthday, because tomorrow's my birthday, so yay, happy birthday.
Hey, happy birthday.
Hey. So we are going to Epcot to dine at Canada. And when I say my family's taking me out, I mean I'm going to pay for 5 members of my family to come take me out. For
happy birthday, John.
So yeah, there you go. That's how that works. But but we've been dying to go to this place. It's in Epcot.
Is that the steakhouse in Canada?
Yeah, it's Canada. The steakhouse in Canada. So I will. I'll drop a review.
There you go.
So we decided, and then of course, he said he and his family are going to probably pop up into Epcot at some point tomorrow afternoon. So we may get together if we're still there and just kind of walk around and hang out around Epcot because we are Disney files too.
That's right.
So, yeah. All right. So we figured we will talk about wrestling because we
Yeah.
Go ahead.
At the end of our the last show that we recorded, we said goodbye. We turned the mics off. We hit stop on the recording software, and I don't know how we started talking about wrestling. And it turned, yeah, but I don't know what brought it on.
We started talking about topics, and then you were like, "Did you watch wrestling as a kid?"
Yeah, that's right.
And
it was just sort of
it
was sort of an out of nowhere thing, and we discovered that we were both have been wrestling fans for a long time.
And it was funny because it was one of those things that I didn't feel like bringing up myself to add into this because it's such kind of a niche thing that not a lot of people always get into. And then when you brought it up, I was like, there's another subject we can talk about. So, so go ahead.
And then we got to talking about the wrestling that we had when we were kids, the Hogan era as then WWF, now WWE, was sort of in its, I don't know, kind of the heyday, I guess.
Hogan, first blew up.
Yeah, Hogan and Andre the Giant and Big John Studd, all those guys. And then it progressed into, then our conversation turned to, WCW and that era of wrestling, and then what's now the Attitude Era of, right, The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then into the John Cena era, and now what wrestling is today. And I have fallen out of wrestling, and it has been a while since I've watched. But yeah, so it was a really cool conversation. So we wanted to get back into just kind of talking about wrestling and our experiences with wrestling, both as kids and now as adults, and our kids sort of introducing wrestling to our kids. And we were just, before we turned the mics on, talking about how I'm going to introduce this sort of new era of wrestling to my son and explain to him that, these moves are scripted and the wrestlers are good at selling what looks like a really violent move while knowing enough to keep each other safe. It is not a pile driver is not actually someone dropping them on their head, or they would break their neck.
Yeah.
Right, and someone would die. That in a body slam, you sort of jump into the move, and if you land flat on your back, you won't get hurt, as opposed to hitting some portion in the wrong way that hurts you. I don't want my 7-year-old to suplex my 4-year-old, and so I need to have that conversation sort of carefully so that he understands this is not everything it appears to be. Very cool to look at. You can't actually do that to somebody or you'll kill them.
Yeah, there you go. And if you can't get that through his head, just tell him, if you suplex your sister, then Noah will suplex you.
Yeah,
there you go.
He does not want that. don't
Noah's about 2 of Coleman wide.
Yeah.
So
you do not want Noah dropping the people's elbow on you.
Oh, no, you don't. So yeah, and then side note on that first conversation we had, we wound up talking for like a good 40 minutes after we stopped that show. And it dawned on me that, well, shit, we actually literally have an entire show right here. Had I hit the fucking record button, and I didn't, so I did it, excuse me. And it was kind of funny, too, because apparently I did it real stealthy, because I literally turned my mic and Paul's mic back on and hit the record button. We kept on talking, and then he went, "Oh, you recording?"
That's funny.
So yeah, I literally leaned across the table and clicked his mic back on. So that's lost to the ether forever, but we'll try to kind of recapture.
Yeah. What's your first wrestling memory? Like, when did you get into it, and what were you watching?
It was definitely WWF, and it was right before WrestleMania 1.
Mm-hmm.
All that kind of stuff kind of blurs in together, because I know I've mentioned on here before that my father bought the big satellite dish, so we were able to get all this stuff from Madison Square Garden, especially when we were in New York anyway, so that was like a channel you could buy, but we had it on our satellite, and we just program the satellite and we pick it up.
Right.
So I was able to watch every feed they had coming out of Madison Square Garden,
wow.
which was like a couple times a month maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't remember why I started watching it. Probably, maybe my father was into it. He's not around to ask anymore, so I don't know. But I think it was probably him. It was on, we were watching it, and I vaguely remember right before WrestleMania. But WrestleMania is like my first concrete memory of watching. Because I remember watching Hogan and Mr. T, which was amazing. I was like, whatever. So yeah, that was something cool.
Yeah.
And so I guess that happened because of Rocky 3.
Yeah.
Because they were in Rocky 3 together. And
yeah, Hogan is Thunderlips in that movie, and has that opening scene with Rocky where they do the sort of fake fight, and then it becomes a little bit more of a real fight.
You can vaguely hear my kid screaming in the background. I don't know what the hell he's doing. They're playing outside, I think. I think they're playing, but their mother's around somewhere, so that's okay.
I sort of remember seeing some wrestling that was like before the Hogan kind of era. Everybody looked the same, right? They were like these sort of older guys that just wore sort of nondescript wrestling tights, and nobody had like a couple people had nicknames, right? But nobody was like super flamboyant at that point. They didn't have the storylines that they had later on, and so I remember seeing some of that. But then there was Bob Backlund, and there was Ivan Poloff, and those guys, and then I remember and then Hulk Hogan sort of blazes on the scene, and there's nobody like that. And it could have been, he comes on and he comes in with the boa, and he's got the blonde hair, like, and then he's doing the whole thing. Like, there was nobody like that big sort of personality.
When he first came on, he wasn't like that at all. He was managed by Freddie Blassie. And it's funny, too, because we started talking about it. Because I do, like, within the stuff on YouTube that I watch, I check out little WWE stuff. If you guys ever look up on YouTube, go to, like, What Culture, and they've got movie stuff, but they also talk about wrestling and stuff. And I think his name is Jules or whatever. He's pretty knowledgeable about it. But excuse me, they'll talk about wrestling and whatever. And because of that, you get your YouTube just pops random stuff at you.
Right.
And literally like 3 nights ago, it popped like Hulk Hogan's first WWF match. And I was like, holy shit. And it was like against some Spanish guy that, I think I remember seeing him in the ring once, but I didn't know him. But, back when Vince McMahon was young and he was sitting at the table announcing, I think it was like him and Gorilla Monsoon talking about, like, this guy, Hulk Hogan, holy cow, look at the size of him. And he was huge compared to this dude. But he was literally like, he came down with Freddie Blassie, and he was just in blue trunks, shorts, and there wasn't a lot of that flash.
Right.
And he didn't use the leg drop finisher at the time.
Right.
He used the leg drop in the match, and I seem to recall, like, I don't think he developed, like, the leg drop was going to be his finisher until he turned good.
Right.
He, much similar to his Thunderlips, he lifted this dude into a freaking backbreaker and submitted him. It took like 5 seconds. But he beat the hell out of him for a little while, and he did like the leg drop and a slam and this and that, whatever. So he very much looked like Hulk Hogan with a little bit more hair.
Right, yeah.
And that was about it.
He didn't have the skullet back then, right?
Yeah. But there was no like ripping of the T-shirt, none of that. He was a bad guy. Yeah. He just came in, whipped the shit out of this dude. He was managed, like I said, he was managed by classy Freddie Blassie. And I forget when, and we'd have to look it up or somebody could tell us. I don't know how long he fought as a bad guy.
That's funny. Because my first memories of Hogan are more flash than that. I didn't remember that era of Hogan.
Yeah, like I don't remember. I remember looking back and finding it.
Yeah,
I like you. I remember really getting into it. My first memories were, like I said, WrestleMania. So he would come down, rip his T-shirt off, and do the whole, say your prayers, eat your vitamins.
Yeah. What are you gonna do when you spy your thought? Yeah. Yeah,
the 24-inch
pythons get a hold of you. Yeah.
But, it was McMahon and Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah.
Were announcing back then. It just flashed in my head because Sammartino mentions the size of Hogan's arms. Like they got to be 22, 23 inch. And then I was like, yeah, it's funny because after that, Hogan never stopped mentioning the size of his arms. But he was a good guy when I remember him. I had to go back and find. I want to say it's a 50-50 shot because of my memory. If I actually saw the match against Sheik when he won the belt. Yeah. And that was like, I think I saw it, but it could be my memory playing tricks on me because that one shot of him hitting the leg drop and rolling him up for the 3 count was part of the intros to some of wrestling. Like the wrestling shows, like Saturday Night's Main Event or whatever. It's in there. So it could just be that one shot that I'm remembering. Yeah. But there was that was the moment he became good. Yeah. Or like right before that, whatever. It was something to do with Sheik, and I don't know if it was because, Sheik was anti-America or whatever, and, he didn't like it and he went after Sheik, whatever. But they put the belt on him. And that was when wrestling started to take off. Yeah. And like Hulk Hogan is the face of wrestling, no matter what he does.
I know that, and having watched different documentaries and read some books about that era of wrestling where it used to be sort of territorial, right? Like certain people had different territories, and then Vince McMahon comes in and really starts to sign them to a national exposure. And so like there was different wrestling in Georgia and in Florida and in up north and in different places, and in different places you could be called a different thing in different places.
Yes.
And you
were certain wrestlers were known for certain areas, and then they would pop into other areas.
Yeah, or you could take somebody like an Andre the Giant, and take him between territories. But there were a lot of like local sort of regional wrestlers, right? And then Vince McMahon starts that whole nationwide WWF thing that really is the end of the territories. But when I moved to Florida, I know that Saturday nights was Florida Championship Wrestling, which was...
I remember hearing of it.
Yeah, it was hosted by Gordon Soley. And, and that's where guys like the Junkyard Dog and between Florida and Georgia, the Road Warriors and all those names that become legends in the South, like the Von Erichs and some of those really big names started down there, and some of them made it to WWF and some didn't, and some sort of later when Ted Turner buys WCW or buys sort of the southern region of that era and then creates WCW, he gets a lot of those wrestlers, and so they get their shot there. But I just remember as a kid waiting for wrestling to come on, and I feel like there was a show Saturdays after cartoons.
Yeah.
And that's where I remember like...
And I think that's where we started with this conversation.
Yeah.
We were talking about Saturday cartoons.
And then after it was wrestling. That's how it
we
started.
shut it off.
Yeah. And then like Jimmy Superfly Snuka and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and all those guys were... I loved that stuff. Yeah,
well, I mean, and it's influenced so much out of like, not just like, okay, entertainment, wrestling, whatever. Like you mentioned Junkyard Dog, when he went over to WWF, he was my first introduction to Queen.
Is that right?
Yeah, because he came out to Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yep.
Yeah, that was before they came out with their own album. Remember that shit?
Yeah. The Rock and Wrestling album?
Yeah. We're getting into the Rock and Wrestling connection.
I wonder... Ooh. I remember that there's a clip of Hogan, and I think it's an internet gif that right, he's playing Happy Birthday, like Hogan on guitar. I wonder if he could actually play guitar.
I've seen him with guitars here and there in other pictures, so it makes me think that maybe he at least can play something.
Yeah.
Maybe not, he's not Slash, but he might be able to play something.
Yeah.
But, so, like, that was right around WrestleMania 1 when it just started to blow up. And it was somewhere between 1 and 3 when all this stuff started to happen. As like when I was a kid, you had the Hulk Hogan and Piper feud back and forth with WrestleMania 1, where they were teamed up with Mr. T and Paul Orndorff, respectively. I remember the British Bulldogs won the belts. Mm-hmm. I remember that WrestleMania 1 because I was rooting for the Bulldogs. I love them. That was my first favorite tag team.
Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid?
Yep. Yeah, that had changed later on, but they were my first favorite tag team. I remember all kinds of random things. I think Tito Santana fought a match then. Yep. And then it kind of like, it grew.
Who was it that kept calling him Chico? Like that, who was in that feud and he kept calling him Chico Santana?
Yeah, I forget.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but we're going to look it up.
Yeah.
We're going to have to look it up.
And,
Paul's going right to we're just going to get Paul a separate computer instead of his phone. He looks like he's like all business. But, I forget who the hell it was, but you're going to say it. I'm going to laugh.
Yeah.
I remember Mr. Fuji not being able to understand a friggin' word that dude said, but he would just come out and hit people with his cane and shit. But there was so many cool aspects going on. And then you got into the Rock and Wrestling connection, and that's when it really blew up. Because, like, for whatever reason, Cyndi Lauper, because she was at WrestleMania 1.
Yep.
She shows up with Wendy Richter. Was that WrestleMania 1 or was that before that? Because I know they showed up at one point. Yeah, it was WrestleMania 1. She led her down there.
Because Lou Albano's in her video, and I don't know if it's...
Yeah. And I think that's what the start was Lou Albano and her were friends, and then she leads Wendy Richter down for her match, her championship match against Moolah or whatever. And then Hulk Hogan and everybody started getting into more of the Hollywood scene. They came out with the cartoon, the WWF Superstars, or what the hell was the name of that cartoon? That was the Rock and Wrestling Connection, or whatever the hell it was. Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, or some crap like that, where it was like him and Junkyard Dog and Andre and
Petit, not Petit.
Yeah, they would run around against like Big John Studd and Rowdy Roddy Piper. Mm-hmm. It was a Saturday morning cartoon. I cannot remember one effing episode to save my life. I just remember what the cartoons looked like, and I remember watching it, but I don't remember any. So apparently it was well crafted because it didn't stick with me at all. I remember nothing from WrestleMania 2. Just that it was there. I'm sure something cool happened there. then WrestleMania 3 was the big one.
Was it Greg the Hammer Valentine that called him that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But, yeah, what the hell happened to that guy, huh? Well, it was him and Beefcake for a while. Were a tag team, him and Brutus Beefcake.
Yep.
And then they split up, and Valentine would pop in and out once in a while. Beefcake went on to be like the barber and hanging out with Hogan and whatever, and messed up his face in a boating accident.
Who did?
Brutus Beefcake.
Did he really?
Yeah. He had like reconstructive surgery or some crap on his face way back in the day. But it was like right around the days of the barber and shit.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
Like that he did the barbershop sort of bits in between wrestling bouts sometimes.
Yeah. And that was funny because it was literally like he came in to help Hogan, I think. Because it was a hair versus hair match or something. And then he came in to help Hogan. And he helped, after Hogan won the match, he helped him cut whoever's hair off, right?
Right.
And after that, he made himself Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yeah.
I'm like, literally, it had nothing to do with your gimmick. You just came in, helped somebody with an electric razor, and now you're running around with a pair of hedge clippers. I mean, just talking about taking a gimmick out of left field.
It was Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah,
Tito Santana talks about Jesse Ventura calling him Chico.
Yeah. He'll go on to be a governor later.
Yeah. In the crazy, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe it was Minnesota, right? I can't believe people in Minnesota actually voted for him.
Hey, apparently he's I don't know how smart he is, but I mean he did it. So he did it for a while. But yeah, so WrestleMania 3, the Hogan and Andre.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I went back and watched that match because it was a sort of a passing of the guard, if you will. But I don't know that Andre. You were telling me the story. You were starting to tell me the story.
Yeah, when I didn't record.
But yeah, he didn't want to get slammed.
Well, what it was,
or it was supposed to be something worse.
No, what had happened was what happened.
What?
Initially, I'd asked you if you had ever seen the Andre.
I have not. I have not.
So yeah, we definitely got to sit down and hang out and watch that because it was really cool. I watched it, and it was a lot of interviews with Hogan and whoever else talking about Andre and telling different stories about him. And it was basically like they told you like Andre was that dude that he lived for the business, he enjoyed it, but you never wanted to piss him off because you literally it wasn't like a where you were in an equal footing contest with him.
Right.
Like you couldn't say no, this is the way it's going to be because he'd just mess your ass up.
Yeah.
And that was a story that Hogan said. Cause for example, they said that they told the story of when they were overseas or whatever, and they were drinking, and Andre is legendary for his drinking abilities, right? He'd drink everybody on the table, and beer cans look like thimbles.
Right.
They look like me and you holding an 8 ounce.
Yeah.
Or a regular beer can. So he'd drink hundreds of beers a night or whatever. And he got wasted in this bar, and he passed out and fell on the floor, and nobody could wake him up.
Yeah.
And the owner was just like, screw it.
The owner's like, there's not four of us that can get him out of here.
He put a pillow under his head, put a blanket over him, or laid a sheet over him, make him comfortable, and locked up. He's like, what's he going to do? It's not like he's going to make a mess in here. I know who he is. You can't miss an 8-foot whatever giant. So whatever, here, just sleep it off, dude. And he was cool with it. He left him there. And he got up later, and he was fine. But that was the kind of thing that would happen with him all the time. He ran the stuff in the back.
Yeah.
He was the general in the back, in the locker room. So when it came to WrestleMania 3, Hogan knew that they were going to put him over. And I know there's a lot of talk about Hogan's ego, and he's got a pretty big ego. They were definitely trying to put him over more and more. In WrestleMania 3, he was supposed to beat Andre. And like you said, with the script, they kind of hashed shit out in the back, And he kept trying to kind of go over to him. He was trying to get a feel for him without asking him straight up, are you cool with this, whatever. He would kind of go, you want to talk things over, whatever. And Andre was just like, no, I got it. I got it. And you got to hear it from Hogan. You guys got to go back and watch this thing because it's funny seeing the look on his face. Like, he's remembering back, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was afraid going out there because you're talking thousands of people.
Right.
And it's supposed to be this big moment. And I had no idea what Andre was thinking. And when they go out there and they do this whole thing, and Andre would kind of like, bellow the directions to him, it was whatever. And then he said, like, finally he was like, slam, whatever. And because Hogan said, it's like, if he didn't help me, there's no way I'm getting this ass up. Yeah. It's not going to happen. So he's like, he let me slam him and, cover him for the 3 count.
Yeah.
He says, so he goes, but up until that point, he was like, he had always planned on doing it, but he never, he wouldn't, up until the moment they got out there, he wouldn't talk to him about it because he was pretty much messing with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can say it. And it's a really cool biopic, whatever you want to call it, to watch, because you see these guys like when they're thinking back, and you just see them kind of getting choked up.
Yeah.
But they're talking about this guy, how like what he was like. They interview the guy like he was the bartender that lived down the road from him. That would see him all the time. And he was like, he was in wrestling business for a while. But he was like, look, he wasn't just another wrestler to me. He was my friend.
Yeah.
We would hang out all the time. And so they really get in deep. They tell you about his backstory and this and that, whatever. But there's a lot of cool stories in there.
Yeah,
that it's fun to watch.
There's a story. I heard it on the Dan Levitard show, but apparently it had been a pretty famous story among people that sort of knew the backstory of wrestling and wrestlers. That Andre and Hogan were on the way to Japan for a match, and they drank the entire flight, and then they had to go pretty much straight from the plane to the event and wrestle, and they're hammered. And Hogan, Andre falls, he drops the leg on him or does something, and Hogan shits his pants in the ring.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it didn't like fly out and go all over the place, but yeah.
Yeah, because he only wears shorts.
Yeah. He didn't wear
now.
He didn't wear like leg tights or whatever. He just had the bright yellow trunks.
Yeah. You'd see it.
Yeah.
So God, somebody's got a video of that somewhere. But yeah, so then you get into Andre. I liked Andre. And he was one of those like when they talk about him in the Netflix special where like when we were talking about like the regions, he would kind of bounce around and everybody would like. He eventually got the giant name by running around different areas. Someone finally came up with it because he had a couple of different names, But then he was one of those ones that you saw kind of sporadically here and there.
Yeah.
So he was a bigger name to me than even the amount of matches that I remember seeing him in. You know what I mean? Like I remember seeing him and John Studd.
Yeah, the big John Studd. Yeah.
And Studd had that "Nobody Can Slam Me."
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
He had like $50,000 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And Andre came down to the ring, picked his ass up, and tossed him down, picked up the bag, and started throwing money all over the crowd.
Yeah. I don't really remember, because I don't think I knew it. I sort of knew who the good guys and the bad guys were.
Yeah.
Who now, the baby faces and the heels.
Yeah.
But I had no idea if Andre was ever really a good guy or really a bad guy. As I say those things in air quotes. Like, I don't remember that being a thing with him. Like, he wasn't...
Up until he... quote-unquote turned on Hogan, I guess he was considered a good guy. And it was funny because it was right when, it was after the whole Piper feud with Hogan, that it was Orndorff and somebody, Morocco or some shit, like jumped Piper's ass, right?
Yeah.
And I remember this because it was back when I had the Madison Square Garden stuff on satellite dish, We would watch it, and suddenly people were cheering for Piper.
Yeah.
And do you remember that? Like, there was a slow shift, and all of a sudden, because this dude went from, which is funny, like you laugh about like the Chico Santana stuff, he cracked the coconut on Snooker's head.
Right.
Remember that? Right? So, he was out of his mind. He would
Yeah.
just do whatever the hell he wanted. Piper's Pit was great.
Oh, yeah.
But he was just an asshole to everybody. And then something happened and he made a face turn, but it was so subtle because it was like somebody jumped him,
Yeah.
you know. But then it was because like whoever jumped him was so hated that it suddenly made him the good guy.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget the speech that he made. He came down to the ring at like Madison Square Garden, you know, and he's got like, you know, the bagpipers and whatever. He comes walking down there, and it was like his return after he got jumped or whatever the hell happened, right? And everybody's cheering for him, you know, and he's looking around, you know, because he's still walking around like his swagger, like he's still a bad guy, right?
Right.
He's kind of like checking everybody out. They're all cheering for him. He gets in the ring, gets the microphone, and he's like, all right, you know. And like I said, the whole speech, I don't remember exactly how he said, but he's like, you know, Morocco and Orndorff or whoever the hell it was, but I know Paul Orndorff was involved in it. He's like, you know, you guys jumped me and beat the hell out of me and blah, 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 whatever. And people are like cheering for him when he starts talking. But he's like, all right, look, he's like, let's get something straight right now. He's like, you can cheer for me or you can boo me or whatever. He's like, I don't care about none of that. He was like the very first one that I remember that even though he was making a face turn, made it known that I don't care, you know? So he was like the first anti-hero in wrestling, right? Like where you get your Stone Cold later or whatever, you know, or John Cena now. Yeah. Can you boo me or cheer for me, but, you know, whatever. But Cena's more of a face than Piper ever was. He goes, you can do whatever you want. You can cheer me if you want. And it's great. He goes, but make no mistake, I'm still the same no good son of a bitch I always was. And everybody just lost their shit, right? Because they were like, we don't want you to change. We just love you now. Yeah. So, and he was still the same asshole, right? So he went through this whole thing where he's like, and this is when I finally realized that there are plants at ringside. Like, you know, people that are constantly there because they work for the company. They just dress them up as fans, you know. You get the ones that, like, start the chants or whatever, you know. I didn't realize that until I got older, but I realized it because this was the same guy that I had seen at Madison Square Garden a number of times. So I was like, son of a bitch, you know. Piper's like, you know, because I got like, it's like 3-on-1 right now, whatever it was. It was like 2 wrestlers and a manager or 2 wrestlers and 2 managers, whatever the hell it was. He's like, the numbers are stacked against me. He's like, so I need a partner, you know. And he goes, but no, he's like, nobody wants to work with me right now. He's like, you know what? And he goes, you, and he points in the crowd. And this dude comes up. He's like, come here. And he brings him up to the apron, right? And Piper grabs the mic and he goes, if you were me and you had to pick a partner to go against Orndorff and Morocco or whoever, who would you pick? And he holds the mic out and the dude goes, Hulk Hogan. And Piper drops the mic and walks away. Just walks away. And his bagpipes hit. Yeah. And that was the end of the interview. And the next thing you know, it was like, you know, the next special, whatever, Hogan comes out and he's like, all right, I'll team up with you. Yeah. You know, and it was Piper and Hogan again, which was funny because they sold it with all the animosity between these two, whatever. How the hell they gonna, and they teamed up, you know, and it was one of those like, you know, the tags were rough, you know, you know, kind of like that. But that was when Piper made his whole heel to face turn. Right around the same time, Andre was going bad and working with Heenan because it was the interview on Piper's Pit. Yeah. Where he comes out with Heenan and Hogan's like, what are you doing with Heenan? You know? And Andre grabs him or roughhouse him, and then Piper's like, you're bleeding, you know? Like he cut him with his fingernails, whatever, so his chest was bleeding. So, you know, I remember just Piper going, you're bleeding, man. You know, like kind of like being concerned for him, you know? But, yeah, so that was like that turn. So I guess that was when Andre became bad. Yeah. You know?
I remember him being like, because he's such a force of nature, so big and so strong, that there was nobody that was ever going to, no one really picked fights with him. They always like, he would come in and sort of clean house if things got bad. If a bunch of people were ganging up on somebody, he would just come in and sort of clean house and straighten the odds. But there were matches where Andre would fight 2 guys. Sometimes he'd fight 3 guys. And then there was the Saturday morning shows were like, Ted DiBiase is going to fight just, Joe Smith, right?
There was always
they're just some schmo
squash matches.
Yeah. There's just some poor guy who's going to take this beating from your favorite wrestler, and he's just gonna house somebody.
That's exactly what they were for. And then they go and they do. Shortly after that, I guess, was when Monday Night Raw came about.
Yeah,
it was because you had Saturday Night's Main Event.
Mm-hmm.
That was a little bit bigger matches. Yeah. In fact, belts could change hands there sometimes. But
and then the pay-per-view started, and I think they needed.
Well, it was WrestleManias. Yeah.
But then the other ones, like once WrestleManias got to a certain level, they started doing the
one a quarter.
Right,
Royal Rumbles, Survivor Series, WrestleMania, and there was one more. What am I forgetting? Because there were 4 that they did: Royal Rumble, Survivor Series. I don't know.
Yeah, but
somebody comment.
But also the technology wasn't. When we were kids, right, in the early 80s, even the mid 80s, like the cable technology didn't always allow for pay-per-views, right? It wasn't as easy to get.
Yeah.
That had to develop to a certain point to be able to let them do WrestleManias.
Yeah.
And all those events.
Because in fact, on that note, sorry, then I'll let you continue. Because of technology.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 3, up in New York, they were in Staten Island. They had a few places that they were trying to. They would buy it, and then they were going to stream it on a projection screen.
Right.
So my father, bought tickets for me and my brother and one of my friends. We all went over there and went to go watch it, and they couldn't get the feed to work right.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So he had to get his money back, and so he missed it. So really, I'll never forget that. Really disappointed. So he was like, all right. I forget what he took us to go do. It was like me and my brother and my buddy Mike back in Staten Island.
Yeah.
And that was son of a bitch. That was WrestleMania 3. We were supposed to watch the whole Hogan and Andre fight.
Yeah,
later.
I went back recently because I was also talking about this with some other friends of mine, and I ended up going back just to see kind of what matches were on YouTube. And there was WrestleMania, I think it was 6, Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
And
that was a huge one.
And that was another sort of passing of the torch where Hogan loses it to the Ultimate Warrior because they wanted him to be the champ for a little while.
Yeah. That's McMahon's always got a love for these really big, buff guys. So I don't know. Might say something about him.
Just kidding, Vince. Don't sue us.
So and then he's always chasing skirts on there too. So whatever.
It's But just that whole era of wrestling just sort of defined part of my childhood, sort of through the teen years. And then I remember in college, you get into more like the Nasty Boys and some of that stuff.
Demolition.
Yeah.
When Demolition showed up.
Yeah.
Because that was Vince's answer to the Road Warriors. And then the Road Warriors came over to WWF and became Legion of Doom.
Yep. So I remember watching it in college a little bit. And then I fell out for a while. I was in graduate school. I had a roommate who, this is just as WCW started into the whole New World Order storylines and stuff.
Oh, yeah, when they jumped ship.
Yeah. And they started signing former WWF wrestlers.
Yeah.
And then taken up, like they had Sting, and they had people that had always been in that WCW stable, but just making them bigger. Mm-hmm. And then they ultimately get Hogan.
Yeah.
But anyway, my roommate at the time had a friend who worked for WCW, and so he knew things like, so and so is hurt, so you're going to see a match, that's going to be a loser leaves town for X amount of time. Well, he's got to, he's sort of hurt, so he needs to go to rehab, and so he's going to lose it. Or there's going to be this thing's happened, or his contract's up, so this will be the last time he wrestles, and he's going to lose. So knowing that stuff made the show WCW Nitro. Yeah, it made Nitro a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, the Monday Night Wars. That was right when
And then
WWF started becoming WWE.
Yeah.
Because of the whole dispute with the World Wildlife Federation. Federation.
Foundation.
Yeah. But it's also when they entered the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
But like right before that, something I wanted to touch on because one of my favorite wrestlers ever showed up on the scene with WWE, and it was Undertaker.
Yeah.
And I just because again, it's probably something to do with like my love of horror and this and that, whatever. This dude shows up, and he's unlike anything else you've ever seen. Definitely back, this is going back in the day when everything in WWF was a character.
Yeah.
You had the dude Coco Beware had a bird.
Right.
Everyone had a gimmick. Something was gimmicked. Doink the Clown was running around. Everybody, it was over the top. It was like watching a live action cartoon. The Undertaker shows up. The dude's literally like a dead guy walking around, controlled by Paul Bearer, with an urn, and he was unstoppable. Like every time you see like Paul Bearer on the side of the ring lift that urn up and he'd sit up, it was friggin' phenomenal. Like moments that guy gave me so many of my fondest memories of WWE, growing up. It was just Undertaker. Undertaker was great. And then you get into your Attitude Era with Rock and Stone Cold, and then Undertaker switched over to the American Badass. Did you see that? Any of that?
I sort of remember that. That's the parts of wrestling that I didn't see happen. I remember the Undertaker coming into WWF. I remember, and then there being Kane, and the storyline was they were brothers, and but I don't remember. I don't specifically remember the American Badass sort of switch.
Yeah, I forget what year it happened, but much like you, I was kind of in and out. Like all through high school, I was into wrestling. We'd go to Madison Square Garden when we were older in high school. My brother and I would go with like one of our aunts, and we'd watch house shows and stuff. Then around '94, I joined the Navy, and I kind of I watched it sporadically here and there, and then I would get into it. I'd watch it for a good year or two because whoever I was around was watching it, and I'd stop watching it, whatever. Somebody I was dating had kids who were into it, so I started watching it again. So I was kind of in and out a lot with it, right? Undertaker turned around. The whole badass thing was like after he got beat in a Buried Alive match. I think it was Kane beat him. So I forget who the hell beat him, or the corporation. Somebody beat the shit out of him, and he got buried alive, and he disappeared. And then he shows up at this is when they started doing all their new pay-per-views. So now they've got like one a month. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna get your money. They literally have like one pay-per-view a month now. It's ridiculous. He shows up at it was Judgment Day,
right?
I think, and like he just like comes. The music starts. It's brand new music. It's not the funeral march anymore. It's like I think at that time it came down to Kid Rock.
Right.
Yeah. It was the American Badass because then he switched over to like Limp Bizkit for a while. Then he switched over to like his own music again because they didn't want to pay licensing rights anymore.
Right.
And nobody was listening to Limp Bizkit anymore. But yeah, he came down to Kid Rock, American Badass, and it was kind of funny because like he comes rolling down on a friggin' Harley with his long ass trench coat, just walks in the ring and beats the shit out of literally like everybody.
Right.
Just beats the hell out of everybody, and that's when you first see his last ride powerbomb, where like he picks the guy all the way the hell up over his head and slams him to the ground. But yeah, that lasted for a while. Like he did that for a good while, and then he came back again as the Dead Man again. Because side note, I guess from what I've heard online. Because Vince never really liked the American Badass persona. He likes the Dead Man, and that's what because he came up with it apparently. So, yeah. So he wanted him back as the Dead Man again, so he came back as the Dead Man, and that was again against Kane. Like that was only like 5 or 6 years ago or something like that. I forget. Time blurs.
Yeah.
But like he got beat again and buried alive again, and then he was gone, and Kane was walking around bragging about how he beat the hell out of him, and this was after Kane unmasked and everything, and then all of a sudden shit started going weird. Lights would go out and this and that, whatever, and then Next thing you know, it starts like the funeral, the bell would tone.
Yeah.
And he'd be looking around. Everybody was losing their shit because like then you realize like the old Undertaker was coming back.
Yeah.
And I remember that one was it WrestleMania? I think that was another WrestleMania. I forget which one, but because you hadn't seen Paul Bearer in a long time either, because Taker was going around on a bike.
Right.
Friggin'. Which, mind you, I loved the badass Undertaker. He was just cool.
Yeah.
He was still Undertaker. He just had an attitude problem. And he wasn't dead. Like, let's get a little more realistic for the Attitude Era, right?
Yeah.
But then he kind of incorporated both. And where the dead man persona is the main one, but he still kind of like moves a little bit more like the American Badass,
right.
Where you see like he's not trying to sell the dead part of it too much anymore. That was funny though when he came back, because it was this whole thing. He's going to come back and kick Kane's ass, and you don't see anything out of him. He doesn't do a promo, nothing. They just they keep playing his bell, and the lights would go out and whatever, and it would say WrestleMania or a date or whatever, and he's basically come to kick the hell out of Kane.
Right.
So Kane shows up down in the ring, WrestleMania, and then all the lights go out, and everybody loses their shit, right? You don't hear the bell. You hear this right, whatever, and these friggin' dudes in robes come walking down. Have you seen this?
No.
They come. You got to see this. They come walking down this long ass ramp. I mean, it's huge, and they're carrying torches.
Right.
So they're on either side of the ramp. There's like 10 of them on either side, and as they're coming down, they start to pair off, and then it gets real quiet. And you hear, oh no! It starts with Paul Bearer. You hear his, oh yes, and everyone loses their shit, and he's up at the top of the ramp, and he comes walking down with all these druids, and they're doing this whole chanting thing, and they get down, they all line up, and he stands there, and he's pointing at Kane like, "You done fucked up now, boy," and then he looks down, he looks up the ramp. And that's as the bell starts to gong, he looks up the ramp and he kind of waves his hand and smiles at the camera. And the camera literally pans all the way through this path of torches, and Undertaker is standing there.
Right.
With the damn cloak, right?
Yeah.
With the trench coat and the hat. It was so cool.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. It was literally like being 12 again.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
The whole WWF, WWE, I don't know if Vince scripts these things out. I don't know if they've got a team of people that do this. I don't know how that works. I don't know if there are writers in a writing room.
They have a writing room.
The way there are with sort of scripted shows. But it's as close to sort of a soap opera that guys will watch.
Yeah.
Than anything I've ever seen, right? Like the feuds and the storylines and the changes, and then someone disappears and comes back, and there's crazy stuff. And it's all a super long running soap opera
which is how I tried to explain. Yeah, that's how I tried to explain it to Heather or whoever. Why do you watch this? Yeah. It's like a soap opera.
Yeah.
My mother used to watch whatever Days of Our Lives or whatever.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, and you've got sort of classic good and classic bad guys. Yeah. There was a time that when we were younger, it was Hogan. And a couple other guys were all American, and they fought the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, the ones
all the foreigners.
Yeah, right. Well, and they would come out and they would play the Russian national anthem.
Yeah.
Right, and then and then they'd play. You hear Hogan's music play, his intro music, and then so it was very sort of classic, sort of patriotic stuff, and then you get into other sort of obviously very good guys and bad guys, and then the line kind of blurs in around the Attitude Era of this idea of an anti-hero, right? Like a Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the time that you think about it was happening more in more and more places in the comics, like Wolverine and others that were not sort of lawful good guys, right? The way Captain America is. You have
Heater, sorry.
you now have characters that are willing to kill or do other stuff, and right. So it's sort of reflective of where we are as society.
Yeah.
You look now, and there are some parts of wrestling that, like, I don't know what we call the era we're in now, but like, and I'm not a prude, but some of what the female wrestlers wear, I'm like, my 7-year-old can't watch that.
Yeah, and it's funny too because, like, now again, equality for women and everything, they've made leaps and bounds. No matter what you say about wrestling and WWE, the women are nowadays are like right at the top.
Oh yeah.
They're huge. But I mean, you're right. Yeah, they're revealing clothes mostly. I mean,
it's a little too much for my 7-year-old.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it was back in the Attitude Era when they were running around in bikinis.
Right.
Yeah. Or Sable with her handprint.
Yeah.
Painted on her boobs. It was. Well, I grew up in a wonderful time. But yeah, it's. Yeah, they're more respected. They're not just eye candy anymore.
Right.
You know, they're the divas are more of.
And it's not right. It wasn't just because the only women in wrestling when we were kids was Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
There was the fabulous Moolah, and there was occasionally a women's match, but it was more of like a.
There were valets or whatever.
Right. It was if there was a women's match, it was Moolah or somebody else, and then it was sort of a sideshow thing. Like, why are we doing this? Get back to Hogan and somebody else.
But then, like you said, you had Miss Elizabeth, who
they were either managers or valets or something else, and then they became wrestlers. So yes, glad that's happening. But it's just a little too much for my 7-year-old.
Yeah. And Noah seems to. It's funny too because again, like going back for sporadic when I would watch it, I was on a downturn there for a while that I wasn't watching anything, and I told you this story. The mics were off, but Noah wanted to wrestle one day when he was like 3 or whatever, and he's like, "Come on, I want to wrestle." So we moved the coffee table out of the dining room or out of the living room, so we got room to play around, and he goes, so I'm like, come here. And he's like, no, wait, you gotta. And he stood by the couch and he goes, John Cena. And I'm like, how the hell do you know who John Cena is? And then I went, oh, wait. At that time, Cena was a huge internet meme.
Yeah.
Where it was like a lot, and we talked about this, and most of you probably know what this is, where there was a period there where you'd be watching a video and you'd think you'd be watching one thing, and they'd say something like, who is it, or some crap like that, and it would cut to Jim Ross yelling, John Cena, and his music would hit. And sing out. It was everywhere. It was like the Rickroll of whatever, So of course he knew who he was from the internet.
Yeah.
But he would never really he had never watched wrestling.
Yeah.
So I started asking him, do you want to watch wrestling, whatever? He's like, yeah. So he would watch a couple. He doesn't watch Monday Night Raw. I can record it. He'll watch parts of it here and there. At the time, it was like unless Cena was on, he didn't care. But we were talking about different wrestling and this and that. Heather bought us tickets to see them in Tampa, and we were like on the ramp,
right,
and like right by the ring. We were like right there. It was the house show, so it was untelevised, but it was like their last house show of the holidays, or whatever. And because my buddy Corey and I came up watching wrestling, we're huge wrestling fans. He goes out there and it's his Uncle Corey, so Uncle Corey buys him a John Cena T-shirt and the headband and the whole wristbands, and whatever, and all this crap. Right? He lost his shit. He's standing on the seat watching, yelling and screaming, and we were like 2 seats in from the actual ramp, and the 2 guys that were next to us were really cool. It was like maybe a little bit younger than us, but every time people come up and down the ramp, so Noah could see, they were like, "Hey, he can come over here with us, if it's cool with you." And I was like, "Yeah, Noah, you want to go?" And he was like, "Yeah." So he would just like hop over their seats, and while they were standing up watching, he was standing on their seats, leaning on the side, the barrier, so he could see them. And he got to high five Randy Orton.
Nice.
Yeah. So those guys like made his whole day. At the time, he didn't know who Randy Orton was. He knows who he is now from seeing him now.
Yeah.
But he was like, he high-fived me. I was like, cool. You know, Uncle Corey and I used to watch him wrestle all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, cool. You just high-five a legend. But he's gotten sporadically into it here and there, you know. But he doesn't know who any of the women are.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as they show up, sorry, my 7-year-old is apparently sexist. If a woman shows up on TV, he's like, whatever. But it's not my fault. I try to raise him right. But yeah, so he hasn't seen much of that.
Coleman and I have been wrestling and roughhousing for years, and so I don't know why I'm concerned about. He's certainly not going to try to body slam me, but and he's starting to hit harder, and so yeah. But I want to start to get him into. I think what I'll do is the way we're doing with video games, like because we have an Atari and a Nintendo. Like I'm going to start with the Hogan era and that stuff, and sort of bring him up.
Yeah, go with the more campy stuff from back in the day. And like I said, instead of you looking it up on YouTube, I've got the WWE app, which, by the way, there you go. Shameless plug, because obviously they have no idea who the hell we are. But shameless plug for that app. You get a lot of these where people are like, go to our app and do this or whatever, and it's just a waste of time. I spend $10 a month on this app, and I'll show it to you before you leave. There's such a backlog of old school stuff,
is that right?
Biopics and whatever. But because once I give you my login, you can log in, and I didn't say that.
I'll only watch it at your house.
Yeah, we'll be watching it at my house. But because I have the app, every pay-per-view, when you open up the app, the first thing that it says, like Royal Rumble is starting now, or WrestleMania is starting in 20 minutes, whatever.
Right.
And it's got a little live button, and you hit it, and you watch it. Now,
they don't charge you extra?
No.
Oh, because you're watching it. Yeah, you're paying per month.
You're paying per month, $10 a month, so you get the pay-per-view. For anyone who doesn't know, every pay-per-view used to be about $30. Now they're about like 50 or 60, depending on what it is. I mean, they're a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. You go through your cable company, you're paying about $40 to $50. Even at $30 though, I pay $10 a month, and I get all of it.
Yeah.
And all this backlog shit too that you can go back and watch. You know, and then you get random whatever the hell because they're trying to break into the different streaming or whatever, blah blah blah, whatever. They do like cartoons and shit like that. So, I'm sure if I look deep enough in there, I could probably find that old '80s cartoon too. They got a lot of shit. They got stuff on the history of the Undertaker, history of Bret Hart, this and that, whatever. All the stuff like you would go and see at the store and buy for like $20. It's all on there.
All right,
all of it.
Real quick, I was just thinking about this, and you said Bret the Hitman Hart, and I was thinking about the worst character they ever came up with, the worst sort of gimmicky character thing they ever came up with. Who do you think it is? What's yours?
Well, I would say, and we can kind of caveat this too into, do you remember before they made it big when they played whatever, for example, before Kane or Glenn Jacobs became Kane, he was Isaac Yankem. He was a dentist.
No.
Yeah. And then he became Kane. And then he wore a mask for a long time.
Yeah.
And then he got unmasked, and it's Isaac Yankem. Okay. But yeah, he was Isaac Yankem DDS.
That's funny.
Yeah, whatever. It wasn't the worst one. It was pretty bad. Some of the revamps they did were pretty bad, but I want to say the first one that pops to my head would be Bastion Booger. Do you remember him?
No.
He was, and I like to try to pretend that I say things with a mode of understanding.
Right.
Like I said, because I'm a fat guy, whatever. But no, I'm a pretty snarky asshole, so I say things just because I want to say them. Even though I'm a pretty hefty dude, this was a fat bastard, and he was essentially wearing duct tape.
Really?
And he would pick his nose going down to the ring.
When was this?
Oh my God, this was before the Attitude Era. It was a while ago. And he was like a shot in the dark. Like he had a few matches for a little while. He was a bald guy. Yeah, Bastion Booger. You're trying to look him up, aren't you?
No, I'm trying to remember because I think for me it is when they made Owen Hart the Red Rooster.
Oh yeah,
right, and they gave him like a little red mohawk, and he would go.
No, that was a different guy.
No, he was it for a minute.
He was the Red Rooster.
He was it for a minute
because there was a guy that was the Red Rooster. And now we're both, ignoring.
I think I'm getting that right. There was a Red Rooster, and I think it was pretty terrible. I don't know if I'm remembering it wrong, but I think it was Owen Hart. There was a blue.
There you go.
He just showed me Bastion Booger. That's terrible.
Yeah.
That is terrible.
Yeah. Yep. So you're welcome. That's for you. That you can't get that out of your freaking head now.
That's awesome.
Oh God, this dude. Yeah. He was a mess. I don't remember. I mean, they tried to sell him that he was going to be something big, and he never was. Because he didn't have any talent.
Right.
Let's see. Who else was a mess? I don't know. I can't think of too many.
So here's the Red Rooster, but they're saying it was Terry Taylor was the Red Rooster. I thought I remembered it being Owen Hart.
No, he was the Blue Blazer.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. In fact, that's the gimmick. He went back to that gimmick, and that's what killed him.
Hart was portrayed as, the Blue Blazer. I'm saying, okay, so I did get that wrong. But the Red Rooster then is still my worst.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that dude was horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah. What about or how about the most insensitive is when you took a guy who's as great as Tito Santana and tried to reinvent himself, so they made him El Matador.
Right.
And he was like, really? Could you? How on the nose do you want to be with this poor guy?
Yeah.
They've had so many random characters that you just like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
The Boogeyman. That was one that's out of your wheelhouse because you weren't watching it then. It was just this black dude with red paint on his face, and now he looks buff enough to be doing, and he was agile. He could do stuff. He would come down to the ring, and it kind of looked like a voodoo kind of guy. It was like Papa Shango,
right?
But he had like a red face, and he would come down doing this little jig of a dance kind of thing to his music, and his music was all creepy, and he had smoke and whatever, and he would reach into a pouch in his pants or whatever, and he would literally take a handful of worms and put them in his mouth. And dude had no front teeth, so he was just and he pops up every once in a while now because for whatever reason there's a part of people who like him. And I was just so weird.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. They come up with some dumb shit.
Yeah, there's some stuff, I mean, not everybody hits home runs. So
No.
for as good as they are in the drama and the crafting, there's always characters that don't work out. I'm trying to think of some. I liked. Do you remember George the Animal Steel?
Yeah,
I liked him. That was not a bad. Yeah, that was not a bad character for him. They never let him speak.
Freaking turnbuckle.
Yeah, he would eat the turnbuckle, take the thing off the turnbuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he had a thing for Elizabeth. They had a.
Yeah, it was like a Beauty and the Beast thing. Yeah, she was the only one who could soothe him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he had that whole feud with Macho Man because he had a thing for Elizabeth.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny. That was weird, but it was kind of funny.
There was a time
I loved Macho Man.
Yeah, I did too.
I loved Macho Man. He was great. That motherfucker.
There was a time. I don't know if they were related in real life. Leaping Lanny Poffo.
Oh yeah. They're brothers.
They're brothers. Yeah, they're related somehow in real life.
Yeah. They're brothers. They're brothers.
Is that right?
Yeah, because his father is whatever Poffo.
And then they made him. They made Leaping Lanny Poffo into a poet. Yeah, he was the poet laureate of the WWF.
Yeah. He come out and say rhymes about people.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
that was pretty painful.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you get into nowadays they got Cena, whatever. The Rock. Okay, now everyone knows him as Dwayne Johnson. He's a pretty phenomenal actor. He shows up trying to incorporate his father and grandfather. He showed up as Rocky Maivia. Remember?
Yeah,
and he was this smiling whatever, and no, it didn't win anybody over. I was rooting for the dude. Didn't win anybody over, so he got pissed off and he became just Rocky and part of the Nation of Domination with Farouk and all those guys, right? So they were running around beating the shit out of everybody, and then all of a sudden he became the upstart that people started getting behind because he had good mic skills.
Yeah.
And then it just blew up to where they jumped his ass and beat him, and he made another face turn or whatever. But then he was just The Rock.
Yeah.
That's when he started talking about himself in the third person.
Yeah.
And probably hands down the funniest promos ever. I mean, he would come out and cut a promo, and you'd just be dying.
Yeah.
Because he would just be talking shit to people, and it was just the way he would do stuff, you know, like just how he would talk to people, you know, talking to whatever, like, and like when he started that whole like what the hell did you say your name was? It doesn't matter what your name is, you know, all that shit.
The jabroni,
calling
people a jabroni.
Oh my god, he had so many, and again because it was his personality, and it was his natural personality because you see it in the movies now. He had a natural charisma that he could sell these lines that nobody else could say this shit. You know, and he did. He had such a good time doing it.
And it's interesting that you have to really be good and make it to sort of the highest strata of wrestling. Like you have to be good at both of those things, right? You have to be good in the ring and sell it in the ring. Because if you're not good there, like you can be great, do the great promos, it's not going to matter. Like if you don't make it look good in the ring, but you also have to be able to do the promos and be good on the mic and give good interviews and sell all that stuff too. And if you don't have both parts of those things, it just sort of doesn't work out. So I'd like to kind of get back into it. I'll probably start slow with Coleman.
Yeah, all right. I'll sit with you. I'll show you the WWE app when we get over here, and then you can kind of take it from there. I think it's worth getting back into. You know, it's definitely one of those things that kind of it comes and goes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can remember being a huge fan of it, and like now it's nice to pop in every now and then and see what's going on. You know, the pay-per-views come around.
Yeah.
Like I told Paul right before when we started, WrestleMania is going to kick off on like April 7th. WrestleMania 35. So yeah, and then that's what. Yeah, it was right before we started talking because I said, yeah, WrestleMania 35 is like April 7th. He's like, wow, is it? And he goes, well, yeah. So April. He said WrestleMania 1 was. I said, shut up, Paul.
Because we started the story where you said you sort of remember, you think that you got into wrestling because of your dad.
Yeah.
And so I would love for Coleman someday to tell that story. Like my dad and I used to watch wrestling, and and that's how I got into it. So like I would really like for him to tell that story, and it be a thing we have.
Yeah, and I'd like that for Noah too. Like I said, he comes and goes. It's just unless there's like action happening, he's kind of like he's not always interested in the backstory.
Right.
He's gonna get there like within the next year or so.
Yeah.
But his oldest brother was into it because I took him to a house show one time up in Virginia when we were living there. Again, there's another one where Heather bought us tickets, so I was like, come on. And he and I went and had a blast. We were pretty close, too.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things that's kind of like it comes and goes. And, and you have a good time with your kids. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun being an adult watching it, understanding how much goes into it, and then watching your kids, like, get really into it, like,
Yeah.
And then worrying about whether or not they're going to
go
belly to back suplex somebody into the fucking ground.
Right. I don't know. That's one of those things I don't know that our parents, at least mine, because I grew up mostly without a dad. I don't know that my mom ever, if she ever had the worry that me watching wrestling was going to lead to me killing one of my friends. Like she never said, I don't remember a conversation where my mom said, see that? Don't do that to one of your friends.
Yeah, me either.
I just sort of, I don't know how I knew better. I just think I knew better.
And
we wrestled, like my friends and I wrestled, but I think we sort of knew not to try to pile drive somebody. Yeah. I don't know how we knew that, but we just sort of knew.
Yeah, well, yeah, for the most part. We still did some pretty dumb shit.
Oh, yeah.
But we weren't to the point of some of the kids you see on YouTube that are like setting up tables and shit in their backyard.
Right.
Ooh, these are some... Those are out where the buses don't run.
Correct.
I don't know how the hell you got a hold of a camera that works, but... Ooh.
That's the part of the gene pool that needs some bleach poured in it.
Yeah. So and of course when you happen to sire this generations, Brock Lesnar, you don't suplex your friends.
Right.
Because unfortunately for Noah, not unfortunately, but thank God he's gentle because he's typically a good 15, 20 pounds heavier than everybody else.
You taught him with great power comes great responsibility.
There you go. Yeah, see? All right, so I think that might be a good way to end it for now.
Awesome.
I'm sure we'll come back after Paul has been exposed to the wonders of the WWE network, and we'll come back and it's just another avenue we can go down now. So now add wrestling to our repertoire of bullshit we're going to talk about.
That's right.
All right, so you guys hit us up. Let us know what you think of, or what you remember if you were a fan of wrestling. If you're not, I know we didn't touch on much of the WCW stuff. We kind of stayed in the WWE area, so we can kind of bounce around a little bit more next time. Hit us up. Let us know what you think, and
tell us your favorite wrestlers when you grew up and who you like now.
All right. Yep. whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, and all that good shit.
Awesome. See ya.
Later.